Hey guys, tonight we slip back into the crackling, smoky heart of Edo, Japan's 17th century capital, where wooden houses pack tighter than sardines and a single candle can spark catastrophe. You're standing on the creaky floorboards of a one-room tenement, rubbing your eyes as dawn creeps through sliding paper screens. The air tastes faintly of last night's charcoal braziers, and before you've even stretched, the reminder is already there. In this city, fire is everyone's nightmare and your daily job. And honestly, you probably won't survive this career-long average life expectancy for someone in your brigade is not great. Still, the uniform looks sharp, and you'll have stories worth telling. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with where you're re-listening from and what time it is. I love knowing which corner of the world we re-drifting through together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink against the pale dawn. The city outside is already restless. Vendors shout as they set up. Someone argues about the price of miso, and there's the faint clatter of a cart. But what pulls you out of bed isn't breakfast, it's duty. You roll up the bedding, splash water from a wooden bucket over your face, and gulp down a quick bite of rice gruel. The meal is hot, plain, and leaves you wishing for pickles, but it'll have to power you through a long day. You live cheek to cheek with dozens of other families. Thin walls mean you hear your neighbor's cough and the creak of another household's pot lid. It's no wonder that one careless ember could turn this block into tinder. That's the constant tension you live with, comfort on one hand, risk on the other. Historians still argue whether Edo's citizens accepted this danger as unavoidable or actively trusted the brigades like yours to keep them safe. Either way, you feel the pressure. Your fire brigade is more than just a job. It's an identity. You're part of a Machibukeshi, a town-based unit formed after the Tokugawa shogunate realized that the city was too big and too flammable to rely on samurai alone. There's pride in that. You belong to a team of neighbors sworn to defend the district, even if defend sometimes means smashing down homes before flames spread safety through destruction. Irony much? The smell of smoke hangs in the morning air, not a fire, just the city waking. Edo relies on fire for cooking, warmth, even light. But to you, every puff of gray feels suspicious. You shrug into your heavy, quilted coat, not because it's cold, but because the stiff cotton, soaked in water, might save you when sparks start flying. The coat scratches at your neck, but that's the texture of survival. A quirky detail you notice every morning: children play in the alleys pretending to be you. They wave sticks like hooks and chant fake alarms, mimicking the bravado of real firemen. You want to laugh, but part of you wishes they'd just stick to spinning tops, because unlike kabuki actors or sumo wrestlers, your job isn't glamorous for long. You step outside. The street is narrow, lined with wooden facades and paper lanterns. Dogs weave between people's legs, scavenging for scraps. Overhead, the sky is pale blue, already warming, and the city hums with anticipation. You're reminded that Edo, for all its dangers, is one of the most vibrant cities in the world right now. Over 1 million people bustle within its walls, and each of them is unconsciously depending on you not to sleep through the next alarm. And here's your first joke of the day. You're not sure if the worst fire hazard is the city's architecture or the guy next door who insists on drying fish over open flame in his hallway. Spoiler, it's both. You join a couple of fellow brigade members walking toward the guardhouse. Their coats slung over shoulders, their chatter easy, though everyone eyes the rooftops as if a wisp of smoke might appear at any second. The guardhouse isn't glamorous. It's a simple wooden building with storage for ladders, buckets, and hooks. Inside, a half-asleep apprentice pokes at embers in the hearth, already smelling faintly of smoke, because everything here does. The morning briefing is quick. Roll call, assignments, muttered reminders not to slack. The captain, older and scarred from past blazes, tells you all to keep sharp. Rumors say the wind will pick up today, and wind is fire's favorite dance partner. You nod, though you're still half dreaming of more breakfast. You stretch your shoulders, feeling the weight of the day press down. The The job demands constant vigilance, scouting the streets, training, sometimes climbing fire towers just to watch roofs. It's monotonous until suddenly it isn't. That's the strange rhythm of your life, hours of quiet boredom punctuated by bursts of chaos that could kill you. A debate still lingers among scholars. Did the brigades truly reduce Edo's fire disasters, or were they more symbolic reassurance than effective defense? From your perspective, standing here tugging your coat tighter, you'd like to think you matter. The alternative, that you're just a glorified demolition crew, doesn't exactly boost morale. The city breathes around you, vendors selling skewers, mothers scolding children, drummers calling for temple prayers. Yet your ears never stop listening for that dreaded clang of the fire bell. Even laughter in the distance carries a nervous edge. Everyone knows it can vanish in an instant, swallowed by flames. And as you finish your preparations, you share a grin with one of your comrades. "If we're lucky," he mutters, "today'll just be drills." You chuckle, but deep down you know, luck rarely keeps its promises in Edo. The city quiets slowly as the embers die, leaving smoke curling lazily into the night sky. You trudge back to the guardhouse, each step a reminder of how utterly spent you are. The heat has left your skin sticky, your coat heavy with water and soot, and your muscles scream in a chorus of protest. Still, there's a rhythm to it, a limping, dragging rhythm that signals survival. The streets are littered with debris. Blackened timbers, crumpled paper screens, half-burned baskets, even the occasional charred lantern lies scattered like confetti after a festival. Neighbors pick through the remains, salvaging what they can. You bend to help a woman retrieve her rice storage box. It's warped and smoked, but the grains inside survive. She bows deeply, murmuring thanks. You nod, wincing at the burn mark on your palm from earlier, thinking, Edo isn't just a city of wood, it's a city of stubborn hope. Your comrades collapse on the guardhouse steps, coat sleeves hanging heavy, breathing shallow. Some chew quietly on rice balls. Others simply stare blankly at the sky, watching smoke dissipate into the stars. The captain doesn't speak, he simply watches, tallying the toll in silent calculation. Quirky detail. Older firemen sometimes kept tiny ledgers noting which homes burned and which families survived. It wasn't insurance, not exactly, it was memory. Proof that the city's rhythm of destruction and rebuilding was being observed, even chronicled. You notice apprentices quietly helping neighbors drag buckets of water onto still smoldering spots. No one is under strict orders now, it's instinct. You step toward a half-collapsed wall, propping it upright just enough that it won't trap the next pedestrian. Historians still argue whether such post-fire activity was planned protocol or simply human instinct kicking in. Either way, you find it oddly satisfying, a mix of heroism and cleanup, sweat and pragmatism. The night air feels cooler against your scorched face, carrying faint aromas, incense from nearby shrines, charred wood, and something sweeter, maybe a neighbor's preserved pickles. You pause, taking a deep breath, letting the smoke sting your nostrils one last time. There's a rhythm in destruction if you listen carefully. Ash falls silently onto the street, dusting everything with gray, as if the city itself is sighing in relief. Nearby, a child finds a half-burned charm and holds it up proudly, eyes wide with excitement. You chuckle softly, joke number one. Only in Edo would disaster double as a treasure hunt. The mother swats at the kid, face flushed with both embarrassment and relief, trying to balance gratitude with admonishment. You check your coat. Torn at the seams, singed at the shoulders, soaked through. The weight of it is almost comforting proof of effort, proof of survival. You lean against the guardhouse wall, adjusting the soaked fabric. Sweat and ash make a grimy paste, but it doesn't matter. You are still upright, still able to move, still part of the rhythm that keeps Edo from turning entirely to rubble. Across the street, neighbors start murmuring about rebuilding, making plans for tomorrow. Carpentry apprentices peek from behind sheets, measuring and calculating, already imagining the timbers they'll replace. There's a defiance in their chatter, a stubborn refusal to let fire dictate their lives. Quirky fact. In some districts, families would race to rebuild the exact layout that burned down the night before, sometimes using the same flawed methods. History might see it as folly, but tonight it feels like resilience incarnate. The captain finally speaks, voice low, almost contemplative. We did what we could. Tomorrow we do it again if we must. You nod, feeling the truth in his words. Joke number 2. Survival isn't glamorous. It's a never-ending loop of exhaustion, heroism, and coughing into your sleeve. A quiet settles over the street. The fire's roar is gone. Only faint hisses remain. Embers settle in puddles of water and collapsed roofs, tiny glowing remnants of what threatened to consume everything. You and your crew gather gear, carrying buckets, poles, and ladders back into the guardhouse. It's ritualistic, like returning to base after a battle. You can feel muscles screaming in protest, but there's satisfaction in the order you restore. You take a final glance at the district, noting blackened roofs, salvaged possessions, and neighbors still whispering in shock and relief. There's beauty here, odd as it seems the flames may destroy, but human life, stubborn and awkward, always persists. Joke number 3. And in Edo, if you survive tonight, you might even get to sleep without dreaming of fire, though probably not. As you settle into the guardhouse, wet coat dripping onto the floor, the smell of ash and sweat heavy in the air, you feel a quiet satisfaction. For tonight the city lives. For tonight you've kept its pulse steady amid chaos, smoke, and screams. Dawn creeps in, soft and pale, over the blackened rooftops of the district you saved, or at least held together. You wake stiffly, every joint protesting. Your coat, damp and smeared with soot, clings like a second skin. You stretch, groaning, feeling muscles you didn't know existed. Today will be another patrol day, another round of inspections, but first comes the ritual cleanup. The guardhouse smells of wet cotton ash and lingering smoke. Buckets sit on the floor, water sloshing faintly with the echoes of last night's chaos. Hooks lean against the wall, still streaked with soot. Ladders sag slightly under the weight of the previous evening. You start methodically wiping, oiling, arranging tiny gestures of order in the aftermath of destruction. Quirky detail, some brigades use leftover ash from previous fires to scrub soot off equipment. It's abrasive but effective. You grimace at the memory of last night's dust-filled scrubbing session. Apprentices shuffle about, stiff and groggy, carrying charred beams or repairing ladders. Some yawn openly. Others mutter under their breath, wondering how they survived the night without breaking something or themselves. Joke number 1, morning after a fire. Everyone looks like a zombie except the captain, who somehow always seems pristine, like he's been photoshopped into the chaos. You step outside to assess the neighborhood. Streets are quiet, save for neighbors tentatively emerging from behind paper screens, inspecting damaged homes and scattered possessions. The smell of charred wood mingles with faint incense from nearby shrines, giving the air a strange, pungent sweetness. A few brave children peek from alleys, waving shyly. They probably won't forget this night for years. Historians still argue whether the psychological impact of fire on Edo's youth contributed to city planning reforms later, but you can see clearly that trauma and resilience walk side by side here. The captain calls a quick meeting. Your brigade huddles, rubbing sore shoulders, elbows stiff. He commends last night's work but quickly moves to business, surveying risk zones, checking rooftops for smoldering embers, and ensuring the next alarm won't catch you unprepared. Fire doesn't wait, and neither does Edo. You make your way to the first street. Hook balanced on your shoulder, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. The rooftops, still steaming, gleam in morning light. Some houses are blackened, some untouched, giving the neighborhood a patchwork appearance that could pass for art if it weren't tragic. People sweep debris, replacing burnt tiles with fresh ones. Quirky fact: some craftsmen reuse charred wood, believing the fire-hardened timber was stronger. You smirk. Edo ingenuity never ceases. Patrolling is a careful dance. You pause at a cluster of shops where last night's embers could have reignited. Water buckets in hand, you and an apprentice douse suspicious areas, hissing as steam rises. The apprentice coughs violently, and you pat his back. Joke number 2. Nothing bonds a team like shared near-death by boiling steam and inhaled smoke. Neighbors whisper thanks as you pass, some offering tea, some bowing deeply, others clutching charms. Their gratitude is tangible, though you know it won't pay your muscles or calm your lungs. Still, it warms your chest. You notice an old man chuckling, muttering about fire gods with a sense of humor, and you can't help laughing softly. The day stretches on, sunlight climbing higher, glinting off rooftops and canals. You adjust your coat, still damp, and check your pole. Ladders and hooks are inspected again, chains tightened, ropes coiled neatly. There's a ritual in this repetition, a rhythm that steadies nerves and body alike. Historians still debate how disciplined Edo brigades really were in equipment maintenance, but you know firsthand. Sloppy tools mean a quick trip to the hospital or worse. By midday, your stomach reminds you it hasn't been fed properly. Rice balls and pickles from apprentices keep you going, but it's barely sustenance. You swallow quickly, glancing at the next block where debris still smolders faintly. Another day, another patrol. Another chance to prevent chaos from leaping unchecked across the city. Despite the exhaustion, you feel a quiet pride. You, soaked, soot-streaked, and worn, are part of the living pulse of Edo. Each roof you inspect, each ember you douse, each neighbor you reassure adds to that heartbeat. And though the city may never fully acknowledge your efforts, you survived. You prevailed. And tomorrow you'll do it again. Evening falls, painting the alleys in muted amber and stretching long shadows over the streets. You trudge along, sandals squelching through wet mud from the day's patrol, shoulders sore, lungs still rasping from last night's smoke. Yet as always, the city won't rest, and neither can you. You peer at rooftops, scanning for embers that might spark another disaster, knowing the smallest carelessness can undo hours of labor. The district smells of soot, water, and cooking fires blending together like a pungent stew. Children laugh in alleys, chasing each other with wooden sticks, pretending to be your brigade. A woman calls out to adjust a pot on her brazier, and you nod, offering the faintest of warnings before moving on. Joke number 1. In Edo, every patrol doubles as a game of dodge the flying pot. A small cluster of shops has rebuilt quickly, showing the city's stubborn resilience. Roofs are patched, paper walls repaired, and incense smolders in tiny containers outside. You marvel at the speed, wondering if these neighbors sleep at all, or if Fire's shadow simply drives everyone to work in constant motion. Quirky fact, some districts had informal fire committees, neighbors who would inspect each other's rooftops daily. It was a mix of civic duty, superstition, and gossip, and it worked surprisingly well. Historians still debate how much these committees actually reduced conflagrations versus simply creating social tension. You pause at a narrow alley where smoke rises faintly from a discarded brazier. An apprentice bends to douse it, hands trembling slightly. You place your palm on his back, guiding him. The warmth of contact is comforting, grounding. The fire might be minor, but the vigilance never is. Your job is less about extinguishing flames now than about training instincts, keeping the next disaster from escalating. Across the street, a young boy points excitedly to the remnants of last night's blaze. He wants a story, wide-eyed, hungry for drama. You shrug, smiling wryly, knowing full well your tale would terrify him into nightmares if told in detail. Instead, you give a playful warning, always respect fire, or it'll humiliate you faster than your sandals can escape your feet. He giggles, and you move on. Joke number 2, in Edo, fire stories are the original bedtime ASMR. A neighbor offers you tea. The cup is hot, fragrant with roasted barley. You sip carefully, savoring the calm. Around you, the city hums quietly, alleys echoing faintly with children's footsteps and the distant clatter of shutters closing. You let your mind wander, imagining rooftops stretching endlessly, a patchwork quilt of homes stitched together with timber and paper. Quirky detail. Some brigades even marked burned houses with small symbols to track which homes were vulnerable, a primitive version of city mapping. The patrol continues, moving through familiar streets, scanning rooftops and inspecting chimneys. You adjust your coat, still damp from earlier water buckets, and glance at your reflection in a puddle smudged with soot, hair sticking up in every direction. Joke number 3. If Edo had beauty standards for firefighters, you'd fail spectacularly. Historians still debate whether these constant inspections were necessary or simply a cultural ritual. You, dripping sweat and ash, can't argue they've saved homes countless times. You focus on each wisp of smoke, every suspicious spark, knowing that preparation is your only weapon. Night deepens, alleys emptying as residents retreat indoors. You pause, leaning against a wall, feeling the weight of the city settle on your shoulders. The flames may be gone for now, but the potential for chaos lingers like an invisible fog. The streets are quiet, deceptively so. Your senses sharpen, trained to detect even the faintest flicker. And as you trudge back toward the guardhouse, muscles screaming and lungs raw, you know this is the rhythm of your life. Vigilance. Chaos, exhaustion, and resilience, repeating endlessly in Edo's flammable embrace. Morning arrives again, pale light spilling over blackened rooftops, revealing the slow work of recovery. You trudge along the streets, sandals slapping the packed dirt, shoulders sore, every joint creaking like old timber. Even after yesterday's inferno, Edo is already stirring, merchants setting up stalls, children chasing each other between repaired houses. You take a deep breath, inhaling the pungent mix of ash, wet timber, and cooking smoke. Your patrol today is more methodical, almost meditative. You inspect rooftops with practiced eyes, cap timbers to detect hidden weakness, and scan paper walls for signs of smoke that might have gone unnoticed. Each step feels heavy, yet necessary. Historians still argue whether these repetitive inspections actually prevented fires, or if they simply reinforced a culture of anxiety, but you know firsthand that a single missed ember can undo a week's work. You stop at a small house whose roof buckled under last night's blaze. Neighbors are working to replace tiles, laughing nervously as they pass beams back and forth. Quirky detail: some families use blackened wood from destroyed homes in their repairs, believing fire-hardened timber was more durable. You shake your head, half in admiration, half in disbelief. Joke number 1. Only in Edo would disaster double as DIY material. As you move down an alley, you notice the children from yesterday playing the firefighter game again. Wooden sticks and buckets become weapons against imaginary flames. You offer a nod of approval, though inwardly you wince at their bravery or recklessness. Some kids pretend to pull down imaginary roofs. Others direct their friends with tiny, shrill whistles. Their imagination is charming, yet dangerously close to mimicking real-life hazards. You pause at a brazier, smoke curling lazily. An apprentice kneels beside it, testing the embers. You crouch, placing a guiding hand on his shoulder. Mentorship is part of your invisible arsenal. The city relies not only on muscle and buckets, but on teaching the next generation to move with both care and speed. Historians still debate whether Edo's apprenticeship system truly reduced accidents or simply perpetuated traditional techniques, but for you, it's survival incarnate. The wind shifts, carrying scents from the markets: roasted fish, pickled plums, sweet dumplings. You take a moment, letting the aroma ground you. A neighbor waves, thanking you for yesterday's work, and hands you a small cup of barley tea. You sip slowly, savoring warmth in your chilled muscles. Joke number 2. In Edo, gratitude tastes better after fire and smoke. Across the street, a small shrine has been set up with fresh incense. Someone has placed charms to protect the district from future fires. You can't help but smile at the mixture of superstition and practicality. Quirky fact: some neighborhoods paid small fees to temple priests for blessings specifically aimed at fire protection, creating a primitive insurance system long before Edo formalized one. You resume your patrol, moving in a rhythm that feels like both dance and duty. Every roof, every brazier, every narrow alley is inspected with care. You glance at your reflection in a puddle soot-streaked, hair sticking in every direction, eyes red-rimmed. Joke number 3. If Edo had fashion shows for firefighters, you'd be the reigning champion of avant-garde ash chic. The city hums, alive and fragile. You move with purpose, knowing your vigilance keeps it from collapsing into chaos. Each careful step is a note in a symphony of survival, and for a moment, despite exhaustion and burns, you feel a quiet pride. Edo lives, in part, because of you. The sun drops low, stretching shadows across streets still scarred by yesterday's blaze. You trudge along, sandals scraping dirt, lungs still rasping faintly from smoke. Your coat, heavy and damp, clings uncomfortably to your back. But there's no pause, for comfort patrol never truly ends, and vigilance doesn't nap. The city breathes around you, and if you loosen your guard, it might just exhale flames. You navigate narrow alleys, ears tuned for the faintest crackle. Every house seems deceptively quiet. Paper walls ripple with evening breeze, a gentle whisper masking potential danger. You tap rooftops, check chimneys, and peer into open doorways. Quirky fact: some brigades used mirrors to peek over fences or into roof angles, long before spy gadgets existed. The effectiveness? Historians still argue, but it feels clever enough to keep your imagination sharp. A neighbor emerges, bowing politely, hands pressed together in thanks for yesterday's efforts. You nod absently, already scanning the next block. Children play nearby, reenacting your brigade's bucket line. Wooden poles flop into mud. Makeshift buckets spill water in slow motion. Joke number 1. If you didn't know better, you'd think you'd trained a squad of miniature drunk firemen. You round a corner and spot a brazier, still glowing faintly from embers that refuse to die. An apprentice kneels beside it, hands hovering over the bucket. You crouch, guiding him to douse it completely. The rhythm is familiar. Spot, move, lift, pour, repeat. There's pride in it, yes, but also exhaustion that gnaws at your joints. Historians debate whether Edo's brigade discipline was genuinely efficient or simply culturally performative, but you know survival requires every precise gesture. Across the street, a family salvages warped furniture, their faces drawn but determined. You pause, letting them work. The smell of charred wood mixes with freshly cooking rice, creating a strange aroma that signals life persists. Quirky detail: some Edo families believed placing salvaged burnt wood in their hearth protected them from future fires, a primitive talisman, blending superstition with practicality. You climb a small step ladder to inspect a rooftop, the wind tugging at your coat. Every tile feels precarious beneath your straw sandals. Sparks from last night's blaze have left faint black streaks on the roof. You tap the tiles with your pole, listening for hollow sounds indicating weakness. Joke number 2. In Edo, a firefighter's job is part acrobat, part archaeologist, and all too often part human lightning rod. As dusk deepens, the city hums quietly, settling into a fragile calm. You notice neighbors whispering, children's laughter fading, lamps flickering on inside homes. The rhythm of Edo is delicate, constant vigilance against fire, tempered by resilience and human stubbornness. You move along rooftops and alleys, a silent observer and guardian, balancing exhaustion with the satisfaction of a city that survives. The captain calls out, signaling the end of patrol. You glance around at your crew, exhausted, soot-streaked but alive. The city is safe for now, yet you know tomorrow may demand everything again. Historians still debate whether such tireless vigilance was sustainable or merely a cultural expectation, but for tonight it works. And joke number 3, whispered under your breath as you descend the ladder, in Edo, the only thing that never burns out is the fire of human stubbornness, and you happen to be its slightly singed torchbearer. Night falls fully, and the city settles into a fragile quiet, though the faint smell of charred wood still lingers. You trudge along the empty streets, sandals slapping softly against the dirt, coat heavy with the grime and sweat of the day. Every alley, every roof, every chimney you pass carries the weight of memory of yesterday's fire, of the near misses, of neighbors' gratitude, and of children pretending to be your brigade. The guardhouse looms ahead, welcoming and worn. You climb the steps, the boards creaking beneath your sandals. Comrades are already there, rinsing buckets, coiling ropes, and setting ladders upright for the next call. The ritual is soothing in its repetitiveness, its cleaning. Yes, but it's also preparation, a promise that you'll be ready when chaos strikes again. Quirky detail: some firemen even kept small personal tokens inside their buckets, a charm. A scrap of cloth or a lucky coin, as though tiny talismans could protect them from flames. Historians still argue whether superstition truly bolstered morale or simply gave men something to cling to when everything else felt unstable. You sink onto a bench, muscles screaming, lungs rasping lightly from lingering smoke. The night air is cooler now, carrying distant sounds of the city's soft clatter of shutters, faint murmur of neighbors, and the occasional barking of a dog. You close your eyes for a brief moment, letting the rhythm of your pulse sync with the quiet hum of Edo. A young apprentice approaches with a cup of tea. You accept it gratefully, sipping slowly, savoring warmth that reaches beyond your throat into bone-deep exhaustion. Joke number 1, after hours of running, hauling, and dodging sparks, tea tastes like ambrosia, and you silently vow to charge for the experience next time. You glance at the tools lined against the wall: hooks, ladders, buckets, and marvel at how much human life depends on such simple implements. Just wood, metal, and rope, yet they are instruments of salvation. The fire may roar, but these tools, combined with human effort, keep the city alive. Quirky detail: some Edo brigades had carved marks on each pole to indicate who had wielded it in past battles. It was pride, history, and superstition all in one. Outside, the district lies quiet. The remains of yesterday's blaze-charred tiles, warped wood, and scattered debris glint faintly in the moonlight. You walk among them, careful not to step on embers that might linger unseen. Historians still debate whether this constant vigilance was a sustainable strategy or simply a testament to Edo's obsession with control. You don't care for the debate. You care about survival, for yourself and for the city. The captain calls a soft warning to check rooftops one last time. You follow him silently, scanning, tapping, listening. Nothing stirs, no smoke rises, no flicker of flame threatens. For tonight, at least, Edo breathes without pain. You return to the guardhouse, muscles slackening as the adrenaline ebbs. Joke number 2. You could collapse here and now and still feel guilty if a stray ember dared spark trouble without your permission. But somehow, you survive the burden, carrying pride and exhaustion in equal measure. The crew settles in, murmuring quietly. You sit alone for a moment, gazing at the night sky above. Stars pierce the dark, indifferent to human struggles, yet strangely comforting. You take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the city, smoke, and lingering rain on the streets. Joke number 3, whispered in tired triumph. In Edo, you're never off duty, but at least tonight, the fire didn't win. The night deepens further, quiet and soft, a gentle contrast to the chaos of flames and smoke you've lived through. You sink into the moment, feeling each breath slow, each heartbeat steady. Streets that roared with fire and echoed with clanging buckets are now hushed, shadows stretching long and tender, wrapping the city in a fragile blanket of calm. You let your shoulders loosen, muscles finally releasing the tension they've held since sunset. In this stillness, the hum of life returns, the subtle clatter of a shutter, a dog's distant bark, the soft footfall of a neighbor walking home. These tiny sounds become a lullaby of survival. You can feel the pulse of Edo beneath your feet, a city that endures, that rebuilds, that relies on countless unseen efforts like yours to keep it breathing. Even the ash-covered streets hold stories, not just of destruction but of resilience, of human stubbornness and quiet courage. You close your eyes for a moment longer, savoring the warmth of a cup of tea still clutched in your hand, the taste lingering on your tongue. Memories of yesterday's fire drift softly in your mind, but they no longer sting. They remind you of purpose, of skill, and of the delicate balance between danger and care. Quirky thoughts creep in. Children playing, neighbors laughing nervously, tiny charms tucked in buckets, all small human acts that make survival possible. Every sound, smell, and faint shimmer of moonlight against wet tiles becomes a reminder that even in a city of paper and wood, life persists. The night carries you gently, cradling both exhaustion and pride. The flames that once threatened seem distant now, almost like a dream, yet you know vigilance remains. And that is enough. The air grows softer, cooler, wrapping you in serenity. Each breath is lighter, each heartbeat a quiet drum, fading into the night's gentle rhythm. You can feel sleep pressing softly at the edges of consciousness, the kind that soothes muscles, clears lungs, and whispers reassurance that you've done enough for now, at least. The city rests, you rest. And in this slow, lingering calm, the memory of fire becomes just another story, told in smoke, in ash, and in quiet heroism, fading into the soft embrace of night. You tug the coat more snugly around your shoulders, shifting its weight as if adjusting to an old friend. The uniform of an Edo fireman is not designed for beauty, though from a distance it might look like some kind of stylish festival garb. Heavy cotton layers quilted thick as futons, usually dyed in deep indigo with bold crest patterns across the back. It asks both a badge of identity and, more importantly, armor. When soaked through, the fabric turns into a spongy barrier against sparks, radiant heat, and flying embers. You pat it flat, silently wishing you'd never have to test whether it actually works. The boots? Forget anything sleek. You're in thick-soled straw sandals, waraji, that slide on damp wood like banana peels. Combine that with clambering up slippery tiles, and you begin to appreciate why fire brigades in Edo weren't known for their low accident rates. A quirky detail tucked into these uniforms: some firemen had elaborate tattoos beneath, full-body works of dragons, waves, and heroes inked across their skin. They weren't for the public to admire. Coats hid them most of the time, but among the crew, they whispered of courage, resilience, and maybe a dash of rebellion. Historians still argue whether these tattoos were marks of pride or social defiance against the stiff samurai code. You sling your tool over one shoulder, a long, hooked pole, looking like something you'd expect to find in a pirate movie rather than municipal service. The hook isn't just for pulling burning beams down. It's a statement. Firefighting in Edo isn't about pouring water to smother flames. It's about tearing houses apart faster than the fire can devour them. The hook is your scalpel, your hammer, and your shield. Carrying it down the street, you can't help but feel just a little taller neighbors see it and step aside with respect, or maybe pity. At your hip dangles a coiled length of hemp rope, stiff but reliable, used for lowering yourself from rooftops or dragging timbers out of the way. You can imagine future archaeologists unearthing one of these ropes, scratching their heads, and arguing whether it was for heroics or just laundry duty. Buckets are everywhere, lightweight wooden tubs bound with iron bands. You practice scooping, carrying, passing them down lines of neighbors. They're simple, but they're also heavy when full. And when you're racing across a tile roof with flames snapping at your face, a water bucket is more likely to slosh half its contents down your front. Still, it's the only water tech you've got. Forget pumps, forget hydrants. This is hands, wood, and stamina. You glance at the brigade's banner, a tall pole with fluttering fabric, painted boldly with the unit's crest. The job of carrying this into a fire belongs to the bravest or craziest among you. In chaos, people need a beacon, and the banner says, "Here's where your brigade stands." Of course, it also says, "Here's a big target for falling timbers," but you don't think about that part. It's strange, isn't it? In a city of strict samurai hierarchy, your rough, working-class outfit feels almost fashionable. People carve your unit's crest into festival lanterns. Children doodle your hook pole in the dirt. And at the pleasure quarters, courtesans sometimes flatter you by pretending to admire the smoky smell clinging to your coat. Joke number 1. Yeah, nothing says romance like eau de charcoal and singed eyebrows. Inside the guardhouse, racks of equipment gleam faintly. Hooks stand upright, ladders stacked like oversized chopsticks. You and a few comrades take turns oiling the wood, tightening ropes, making sure everything is ready. This is the quiet part of the day, almost meditative. You sharpen your mind by sharpening the edge of practicality. You feel oddly proud of the dents and scorch marks on the tools, their scars. Proof that your brigade has stood against fire and returned. The captain enters, inspecting uniforms. He scowls at one apprentice whose coat is half-fastened, tugging it closed with a barked warning. Discipline is everything here. It's not enough to have tools. You have to look like you belong to them. The fire doesn't care if you're tired or hungover, though. Between us, a few of your crewmates clearly are. Historians like to debate whether Edo's brigades leaned more toward ritual pageantry or actual efficiency. The bold crests, choreographed drills, and dramatic uniforms make it tempting to think of them as performers first, firefighters second. But as you adjust the rope on your shoulder, you know better. Maybe there's a little theater in the way you march down the street, but when flames leap sky high, there's no acting involved. Quirk of the day: some brigades would soak their coats in water until they doubled in weight. Imagine clambering up a roof carrying what feels like a wet futon wrapped around your body. On the plus side, you're less flammable. On the minus side, you're basically a human dumpling steaming in your own sweat. Joke number 2. Congratulations, you're Edo's least appetizing hot pot. You trace the bold die on your coat's back, your brigade's crest, sharp and proud. It's more than decoration. It tells people who you are, where you're from, and whether they'll cheer or jeer when you arrive. Rival brigades treat these crests like sports teams treat mascots. Pride runs deep, and insults fly just as high, but that's a story for later. For now, you feel that little surge of belonging, a sense of being part of something larger. You swing your hook pole experimentally, listening to the whistle of air. Around you, the others do the same, the clack of wood and the thud of buckets forming an impromptu rhythm. It's almost musical in a rough, offbeat way. You imagine some kabuki playwright taking notes for a new fireman play. The sun creeps higher, lighting up the rooftops. Your uniform feels heavier already, the coat's cotton holding in heat even before you've soaked it. You wipe sweat from your brow, squinting at the sky. Somewhere out there, a fire is waiting. Whether it sparks today or tomorrow, your tools are ready, and so are you. And your third joke, well, sort of a grim one. Your gear is so specialized for breaking things apart that sometimes you wonder if you secretly carpenters working backward. Build a house? Nah, you're the demolition crew on fast forward. You rest your hook across your shoulders, shift your sandals on the packed dirt, and follow the others out into the alley. The day isn't getting cooler, and neither is the city. Edo is a tinderbox. And now, uniformed and armed with your ungainly tools, you're one of its guardians, whether history calls you a hero, a performer, or just a guy with very sore shoulders. The sun is barely above the horizon when your captain barks the order. Drills. You groan inwardly because drills mean sweat, blisters, and buckets of water sloshing down your legs before the day has even properly begun. Still, this is the rhythm of your life. Edo doesn't wait for you to get in shape once the flames are already licking across rooftops, so every morning, like clockwork, you and your crew rehearse saving the city. First comes chanting. You line up with the other brigade members in the dusty yard, shoulders squared, poles at your side. The captain raises his hand, and the crew begins to belt out rhythmic calls, voices rising and falling like a festival song. The chant is both practical, keeping everyone in step, and theatrical, since neighbors often gather to listen. To you, it feels like karaoke practice without the sake. Joke number 1, at least nobody's forcing you to sing off-key love ballads about cherry blossoms. Then the pole climbing. A massive wooden ladder more like a shrine ornament than a tool is planted upright. One by one, you scramble up its narrow rungs, perching on crossbars to strike dramatic poses. Arms outstretched, hook raised high, you look like some kind of superhero silhouetted against the morning sky. And here's the funny part, people actually applaud. Children clap, old folks nod approvingly, and you wonder whether this is drill or cheap street entertainment. Historians still argue whether pole climbing was mainly a training exercise for rooftop work or simply a public spectacle designed to boost morale. You, wobbling 30 feet above ground with your sandals slipping, aren't sure either. Next, synchronized bucket tossing. 2 rows of firemen line up, passing wooden tubs hand to hand, splashing half the contents on the ground before it ever reaches the imaginary blaze. The rhythm is hypnotic: lift, toss, catch, splash. You get into the groove until one apprentice fumbles, dousing his neighbor from head to toe. The yard erupts in laughter. The captain sighs like a man who's seen this happen 100 times before. Joke number 2, at least the apprentice is now the least flammable one here. Your stomach growls, reminding you that rice gruel at dawn doesn't last forever. You fantasize about grilled fish, maybe even a handful of pickled plums. Instead, you're handed another bucket. The drills roll on, running with ladders balanced across your shoulders, hooking at wooden posts to simulate tearing down walls, coordinating shouts to warn, "Fire!" In unison, it's exhausting, but it's muscle memory you'll thank later when chaos blurs all thought. A quirky tidbit slips into your mind. Sometimes these drills doubled as neighborhood festivals. Crowds would gather, vendors set up stalls, and your sweaty misery became their entertainment. Kids munched on sweet dumplings while you strained to keep your balance on a pole, as if you were juggling flaming swords. And of course, everyone judged your Formido audiences were notoriously picky. You couldn't just be effective. You had to look good doing it. As you wipe sweat from your brow, you catch your captain watching you closely. He says, the kind of man who can spot a slack grip or lazy posture from across the yard. He isn't cruel, but he's relentless. After all, a sloppy stance and drill might mean a broken leg in the real thing. And broken legs don't mix well with climbing roofs. You pause, leaning on your pole, heart thumping in your ears. Around you, the brigade breathes heavily, faces red and shiny. For a moment, the yard is quiet except for the sound of dripping water from overturned buckets. You realize this is the closest thing you get to a gym membership in Edo except instead of dumbbells. You lift ladders and instead of yoga mats, you slip in puddles. Joke number 3, eat your heart out. Modern fitness influencers, this is the original high-intensity interval training. Historians like to debate the efficiency of these daily rituals. Did they actually prepare you for the unpredictable chaos of a real fire? Or were they more about building morale and showing off to the public? You don't care. Your arms ache, your sandals squelch, and your mind is already drifting toward lunch. Yet even through the exhaustion, you can feel a strange pride. The drills aren't just about muscle memory, they bind you to your crew. Each chant, each synchronized toss, each clumsy slip turns into a shared memory. When the flames come, you'll need more than tools, you'll need trust. The captain calls for one last exercise, sprinting in formation, carrying the brigade's banner high. The tall pole wobbles, fabric snapping in the breeze as you pound down the street with the others. Passers-by stop to watch. Some smile, some roll their eyes, some mutter about the noise. But as you run, lungs burning, you feel like part of something bigger, loud, messy, and stubbornly determined. The drill ends with everyone slumped against the guardhouse wall, chests heaving. Apprentices fetch buckets of fresh water, pouring them over heads and arms. The splash is cold, sharp, glorious. For a fleeting moment, you're grateful just to be wet without smoke in your eyes. The city hums beyond the yard vendors hawking their wares, neighbors gossiping, distant temple bells marking the hour. Another ordinary morning in Edo, except your body feels like it's already been through a war. Still, when the captain dismisses you, you straighten, bow, and fall into step with the others. Because drills may be exhausting, but they're only the prelude. The real test is waiting out there, hidden in some careless spark. You shake off the ache in your legs, sling your hook pole back over your shoulder, and join the patrol winding into Edo's endless tangle of alleyways. Morning drills may have left your arms rubbery, but now comes the other half of your duty wandering the neighborhood, sniffing for danger like a watchdog that doesn't wag its tail. She jumps, bows, and hurriedly shifts it back. You wave her off, half stern, half amused. Joke number 1. If you had a copper coin for every time someone almost set their house ablaze, you'd be rich enough to buy one of those fancy tatami-ins instead of living in a one-room oven. Your sandals scrape against the wooden rungs as you climb, higher and higher, until the street below looks like a tangle of ants carrying baskets. The fire watchtower creaks beneath your weight, its tall frame swaying slightly in the wind. You pause to grip the railing, feeling the rough timber bite into your palms. From up here, Edo stretches in every direction, an endless sea of wooden roofs, paper screens, and narrow alleys, all waiting to ignite at the smallest spark. The tower is nothing fancy, just a tall scaffold with a bell hanging from its frame, but it's the city's early warning system. From this perch, you're the eyes of the district. You scan for smoke, for flickering orange, for that sickening shimmer that means a fire has already begun. It's both empowering and terrifying. Joke number 1. It's like being given the best seat in the kabuki theater, except the play you're watching might burn your house down. Up here, the wind is stronger, tugging at your coat and carrying the mixed aromas of the city, soy sauce simmering in shops, smoke from kitchen braziers, the faint briny tang from the bay. Every scent makes your nose twitch. Is that normal cooking or the start of disaster? You squint at a rooftop where laundry flaps like surrender flags, but no smoke. Just nerves. Historians still argue whether watchtowers were truly effective given Edo's vast sprawl. From one vantage point, you can't possibly see every hidden courtyard or back alley. But the moment you spot danger, the bell is your weapon. Its clang is unmistakable, deep, metallic, slicing through the city's clamor. When it rings, every ear pricks up, every stomach drops, and every fireman in the district grabs his hook pole and runs. You lean against the railing, eyes roaming. Below, children point at you, giggling at the figure high above. Some wave, you wave back with exaggerated flair, pretending not to wobble. There's pride in being up here, but also monotony. Hours can pass without so much as a wisp, and you find yourself daydreaming. Sometimes you even nod off, head jerking as the wind slaps your face awake. A quirky little tidbit: some watchmen swore they could smell fire before seeing it. They claim the scent of burning wood carries differently than cooking smoke, sharper, meaner. Maybe it's true, or maybe that's just what happens when you spend too much time sniffing rooftops. Either way, your nose twitches constantly, making you look like a suspicious rabbit. The captain climbs halfway up, shouts a reminder, "Stay sharp." The wind's from the north today. It'll carry fire faster than you can blink. You nod, settling your focus again. Fires spreading with the wind are nightmares. One roof to the next, like dominoes tipping over, until whole districts vanish in hours. The bell above your head looms like a silent judge. You run your hand along its cool bronze surface, imagining the chaos it could unleash. When struck, its voice echoes for blocks, carrying urgency straight into the bones of the city. You almost want to ring it just to break the monotony, but you value your job too much for that prank. Joke number 2. False alarm. Dosena's tea sounds so funny when 50 angry neighbors are demanding why you ruined their lunch. The view itself is breathtaking, though. You can see the castle rising in the distance, its white walls gleaming. Beyond it, the green fringe of forest and the faint line of mountains. Closer in, temples, bathhouses, bridges all stitched together by canals and streets. Beautiful, yes. Fragile, definitely. You realize the whole city is basically built like one giant bonfire awaiting a match. Time drags. You shift your weight, sit on a beam, hum a tune. You scratch a doodle into the wood with your hook-just lines, nothing fancy. The monotony is crushing. Historians note how watch duty was both vital and despised. Essential for catching fires early, but boring enough to drive men into mischief. Some crews even played dice while supposedly keeping watch. You can see how the temptation would creep in. Still, you endure. Your comrades below switch shifts, sending up rice balls wrapped in bamboo leaves so you don't starve. You eat slowly, savoring the salty tang, crumbs drifting into the street below. People barely glance up after all. You're part of the background, like clouds or birds. Then the wind shifts suddenly, rattling the tower, making the bell sway and clink against its frame. You grip the railing tight. Your heart spikes. Was that smoke? You peer hard, scanning the rooftops. A dark curl rises near a cluster of kitchens. Your fingers twitch, hovering near the bell's striker. But then a neighbor lifts a pot lid, releasing a puff of steam. You exhale slowly, shoulders sagging. False alarm. This time. Joke number 3. You realize your job is basically playing Where's Waldo? Except Waldo is a fire, and if you miss him, your neighborhood turns into toast. The hours drag, but every moment matters. You're the thin line between normal life and catastrophe. Maybe you're bored, maybe your legs ache from balancing on wooden beams, but you also the one who'll sound the alarm when the city most needs it. Finally, your relief climbs up, huffing, wiping sweat from his brow. You hand over the watch, clapping his shoulder. As you descend the ladder, every rung thuds under your sandals, bringing you closer to solid ground and the life of the street. The tower sways behind you, but its shadow stretches long across Edo. You glance back once, silently grateful you didn't have to ring that bell today. But deep down, tomorrow or the next day, you probably will. Your feet barely hit the ground from the tower shift before it happens, the alarm. A low, metallic clang booms across Edo, echoing through alleys, vibrating in your chest like a temple drum gone wild. People freeze mid-step, chopsticks clatter in bowls, dogs bark, and for a breathless heartbeat the entire city seems to hold still. Then, as if struck by lightning, it erupts into motion. You sprint toward the guardhouse, sandals slapping the packed dirt, coat flaring behind you. The captain is already there, barking orders, eyes sharp. Apprentices scramble to grab banners, hooks, and buckets, their hands fumbling with ropes. You grab your pole and heft it onto your shoulder, the weight suddenly heavier now that it means something. Joke number 1. The fire is serious when even the laziest apprentice runs faster than a rat spotting leftover soba. The banner carrier plants the tall pole into the street, its crest snapping in the wind. You form up around it, a ragtag squad suddenly transformed into something resembling order. The chant begins short, sharp cries, more bark than song cutting through the chaos as you charge forward. The crowd parts reluctantly, people pressing themselves against walls, dragging children by the arms, bowing nervously as you thunder past. The soundscape is chaos. Bells from other watchtowers answering the alarm, neighbors shouting, "Kaji!" Fire! At the tops of their lungs, the slap of sandals, the rattle of ladders bouncing on shoulders. Historians still argue whether this noisy procession was more about psychological impact making citizens feel protected or about real efficiency in reaching the fire. All you know is the noise fuels your legs, pushes you forward. You dart through narrow streets, twisting around corners, nearly colliding with a fish vendor spilling his wares. The air grows hotter, tinged with that acrid bite unmistakable from cooking smoke, the smell of true fire. Your stomach knots. Ahead, a column of smoke rises into the sky, black against the blue, and shouts grow louder. The banner waves high, guiding stragglers toward the scene. There's pride in that fabric, but also risk. Quirky fact, in some cases, rival brigades would race each other to be first on scene, using banners not just as guides but as taunts. "We got here before you." Sometimes fists flew before water did. Today, though, you just hope you beat the flames. The streets tighten as you near the district. People flee past you, carrying bundles of bedding, small chests, the occasional pet bird in a bamboo cage. Some drop possessions in panic. Others clutch charms from temples as if they'll ward off fire more effectively than water. You dodge, weave, and shout warnings as you push through. Your sandals slip on the dirt as you finally round the corner into the burning street. Flames lick at rooftops, tongues of orange snapping like banners in the wind. The roar is deafening, alive, as if the city itself has found a terrible new voice. Heat slams into your face, forcing you to squint, and sparks rain down like fiery snow. The captain raises his hand and you skid to a halt. The formation dissolves into practiced chaos. Ladders thump against walls, hooks swing upward, buckets fly hand to hand. Your chest heaves, but you grip your pole tighter, eyes locked on the house already engulfed. Historians still debate whether Edo brigades truly fought fires or simply managed them. The goal wasn't always to extinguish flames, but to contain them, tearing down buildings in the fire's path to stop its spread. As you look at the inferno ahead, you realize the strategy is brutally logical. You can't fight fire with buckets alone, but you can starve it of fuel. The crowd presses in, desperate to watch, yet terrified to be too close. Vendors appear like magic, hawking skewers and dumplings, because in Edo, even disaster looks like an opportunity for business. You roll your eyes, sweat stinging, muttering joke number 2. Only here could you risk losing your house while still debating which sauce goes best on grilled squid. The captain's voice cuts through your thoughts. Move! Roofs first! You dash toward the ladder, hook balanced in your hands. The climb is dizzying, smoke clawing at your lungs, but adrenaline steadies your feet. Below, the bucket line has already formed, neighbors passing tubs of water with frantic rhythm. Some spill more than they carry, but the intent is that this is a city's fight, not just yours. The banner waves in the thick smoke, a defiant silhouette against the blaze. Your crew shouts back and forth, voices hoarse, trying to coordinate over the fire's roar. A shower of sparks rains down, and you duck, coat smoldering briefly before a comrade slaps it out. Your heart hammers. This is it, the moment the drills prepared you for, the reason the city depends on you. And joke number 3, shouted between coughs as you haul yourself onto the roof. Next time someone asks for an exciting job, remind them this one comes with free smoke inhalation. The fire is alive, unpredictable, and hungry. But so are you and your brigade, loud, stubborn, and armed with nothing more than hooks, ladders, and sheer determination. The alarm has done its job. You're here. And now the battle begins. The roof tiles burn hot beneath your straw sandals, radiating heat like a griddle at a street stall. You crouch low, balancing your hook pole in both hands, while smoke pours from the eaves in great black curls. The fire roars only a few houses away, snapping wood like toothpicks, spitting sparks into the air. Your heart hammers, but your body moves almost without thought. The endless drills pay off now. You drive the hook into a timber beam, muscle straining, and yank hard. The wood groans, resists, then tears free with a satisfying crack. Below, comrades shout encouragement. You toss the beam down into the alley where others drag it clear of the flames. The logic is brutal. You not saving the burning house, you pulling apart the ones nearby to build a firebreak. Demolition by hand, performed at dizzying height while flames laugh at you. Historians still argue whether Edo brigades really extinguished fires or simply slowed them down until nothing more could burn. From your perspective, with sweat dripping into your eyes, the answer is obvious: you fight by subtraction, not addition. The bucket line clatters below. Neighbors and apprentices pass water hand to hand, arms pumping, sandals slapping the mud. Each splash against the roof buys you seconds. Sometimes you drink straight from a bucket before sending it back. It's not hygienic, but neither is choking to death on smoke. The heat presses against you like a wall. Your soaked coat clings heavy, steaming in the inferno, but at least it shields you from the sparks stinging your skin. You cough hard, spit black phlegm, and keep going. Joke number 1. If anyone asks for a beauty tip, you'll swear by smoke mask, charcoal exfoliant, and buckets of panic sweat. A comrade beside you slips, sandals sliding across tile. You lunge, grabbing his arm just as he teeters toward the edge. His hook clatters down into the alley, but he steadies. You both laugh shakily because the alternative is screaming. Down below, someone retrieves the hook and tosses it back up. The teamwork is raw, messy, but it keeps you alive. The fire itself is hypnotic. It moves with terrifying grace, leaping from house to house like a dancer spinning across a stage. Paper walls collapse inward with a sigh, timbers crash with thunder. Sparks arc high into the sky, carried by the wind, threatening to start new blazes blocks away. You squint, praying other brigades catch them before they spread. Quirky detail. Sometimes townsfolk treated fires almost like festivals, rushing to watch, cheering when roofs collapsed dramatically. You can see it now, hawkers selling rice cakes at the edge of the crowd, children perched on shoulders, eyes wide. You mutter under your breath about charging admission. And there's joke number 2. If kabuki ever runs out of plays, they could just sell tickets to your misery here. The captain's voice bellows from the street. Tear it down! Faster! You and your crew slam hooks into more beams, pulling, ripping, sweating until your arms feel like noodles. Each crash of falling timber is both victory and loss. Someone's home is gone, but maybe dozens more will survive. The bucket line falters for a moment. Neighbors argue about pace. Someone slips in mud. You shout down, voice raw, until they find rhythm again. It's chaos controlled only by shouting, banners, and sheer desperation. Historians still debate whether Edo's firefighting methods were innovative or just crude necessity. Compared to the fire engines of Europe, your buckets and hooks seem primitive. Yet somehow, in this flammable city of paper and wood, the method worked well enough to keep life moving forward. You can't decide if that makes you clever or just stubborn. A shower of sparks rains onto the roof, hissing against your wet coat. One lands in your hair. You slap it out with a curse. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in a shard of polished wood, face smeared black, eyes red, grinning wildly. You look like a demon, and you almost laugh. Joke number 3. If you survive this, you totally charging people for ghost stories about the time you became a fire spirit. The blaze slowly loses ground. The houses you've ripped apart form a jagged gap, a wound in the street that the flames can't cross. Smoke still billows, but its fury begins to wane. Neighbors cheer, exhausted voices, ragged but triumphant. Some collapse on the ground, buckets still in hand. Others weep over charred remains of possessions. You feel the ache in your shoulders, the rawness in your throat, the pounding in your skull. You climb down at last, legs trembling, sandals slipping on the ladder. The ground feels unreal, too solid after hours dancing with fire. Your comrades slap your back, exchange tired grins, drink greedily from nearby wells. The captain nods once, a rare sign of approval. The fire is not gone, it still smolders, coughing out black plumes. But it's caged now, tamed enough that others can keep it from spreading. Your brigade has done its job. And as you stagger back, wiping soot from your face, you realize the battle never truly ends. The city is wood and paper, and tomorrow the flames may rise again. But for tonight you've held the line. The fire still smolders behind you, coughing sparks into the sky, but your focus shifts to the living theater swelling in the street. The neighborhood crowd, drawn by the clang of bells and the roar of flames, has gathered in a messy half-circle, faces glowing orange in the flicker. They crane their necks to see, whispering, laughing nervously, some cheering as if your brigade's demolition work were part of an evening's entertainment. Vendors have appeared as they always do, like mushrooms after rain. Men balance poles with baskets slung from each end, grilled squid skewers on one side, steaming sweet potatoes on the other. Someone hawks barley tea in tiny cups, another sells charms supposedly blessed to protect homes from fire. Never mind that half the charms probably came from the same warehouse district, now ablaze. Joke number 1. Edo might burn down, but at least you'll never starve during the process. Children dash between legs, shrieking with excitement, clutching pieces of wood as souvenirs from the demolished houses. Their mothers scold them, only half convincingly, because deep down they too want something to bring home, proof they witnessed the chaos. A group of teenagers try to imitate your brigade's chants, stomping around the alley, waving broomsticks like hooks. You shake your head, mocking you now, maybe joining you later. The atmosphere is part fear, part festival. Some neighbors clutch their belongings tight, faces pale, muttering prayers. Others gossip loudly, whose house burned first, whose negligence sparked it, who was seen fleeing suspiciously fast. Historians still argue whether Edo-S citizens viewed fire brigades as genuine saviors or as rowdy demolition crews whose work was just another spectacle. Looking at the crowd now, you can see both sides. The heat of the fire pushes you back, yet the crowd leans forward, drawn to the danger like moths. It feels absurd these people should be hiding, protecting their homes. Instead, they turn disaster into theater. Quirky fact: kabuki actors sometimes incorporated recent fires into their performances, blurring lines between art and reality. Tonight, you're the actors and the stage is made of ash. The captain shouts, trying to clear space. Your crew needs room to haul beams, drag buckets, keep working. But the crowd presses stubbornly, hungry for every detail. You and your comrades push gently, then not so gently, until space opens. Still, people hover at the edge, munching dumplings, sipping tea eyes wide. You swear one vendor is doing better business than he would on a normal market day. A woman rushes past, wailing, dragging a chest so heavy it leaves furrows in the dirt. A lid bursts, open silk kimono spill onto the ground. Strangers kneel to help, lifting, folding, placing the garments back with surprising care. In disaster, kindness slips through. Then again, you also notice a boy pocketing a small trinket when no one's looking. Joke number 2, it is not a true Edo fire until at least one neighbor suddenly becomes an accidental collector of souvenirs. You glance upward. From a nearby roof, people perch dangerously close to the edge, hoping for a better view. Their silhouettes cut against the smoke, fragile, foolish. You shout a warning, they just wave cheerfully back, as if you're part of their entertainment. You mutter under your breath, promising yourself not to be the one scraping them off the ground later. In the corner of the street, an impromptu storyteller sets up. He waves his arms dramatically, retelling how the fire started, though you suspect he's making up half of it. The crowd laughs, gasps, murmurs. History in Edo is often written on the spot, with imagination standing in for fact. Your brigade keeps at it, but you can't help noticing how the audience shapes your pace. Every crash of timber ripped free earns a cheer. Every spray of water against the blaze draws applause. You're saving homes, yes, but you're also performing? Joke number 3. At this rate, someone's going to ask you to autograph their rice paddle. The fire dwindles. Smoke thickens, acrid and damp, forcing the crowd to cover mouths with sleeves. Still, they linger, unwilling to abandon the stage until the final ember dies. For them, this was an evening's drama, terrifying yet unforgettable. For you, it was sweat, risk, exhaustion, and maybe a narrow brush with death. As your comrades slump against the banner pole, gulping air, you look at the faces around you. Gratitude in some, thrill in others, curiosity in most. This strange dance between danger and spectacle defines your work. And as much as you grumble, the crowd's eyes remind you that your struggle is seen. You slump against the charred frame of a half-collapsed house, lungs burning, throat raw. The fire is under control now, though smoke still rises in heavy gray columns, stinging your eyes until they water. Every breath tastes of ash. You spit black phlegm onto the ground and wipe your mouth with the back of your soot-streaked hand. Your arms tremble, not from fear anymore, but from sheer exhaustion. Someone coughs violently beside you, doubled over, hacking until their face turns red. You slap their back and they wheeze a laugh, but the truth gnaws at you. This smoke doesn't just vanish from your body. It clings to your lungs like invisible scars building layer by layer. Historians still argue whether Edo firefighters had dramatically shorter lifespans or if sheer toughness kept many alive into old age. You're too busy coughing to cast your vote in the debate. Injury is almost expected. A comrade staggers past, his arm wrapped in a cloth already soaked through with blood from a falling tile. Another limps badly, ankle twisted on a slick roof. One unlucky soul sits on the ground with burned hands, staring blankly, too shocked to cry. There are no fancy doctors waiting nearby, maybe a temple priest with herbal remedies, maybe a neighbor who knows a poultice recipe. Joke number 1, the Edo health plan is basically hope the wound doesn't smell worse tomorrow. You tug at your coat, finding holes singed clean through. Your hair reeks of burnt oil, sticky with soot, and your eyebrows are suspiciously thinner than before. Someone hands you a dipper of well water. You gulp it greedily, only to choke halfway because your throat is still lined with ash. You laugh at yourself, because if you don't, you will think too hard about the fact you slowly pickling your lungs like radishes in brine. The ground underfoot is a treacherous mess of embers, splintered beams, and broken tiles. You step carefully, though carefully in this context just means try not to snap your ankle before payday. Nearby, apprentices poke through rubble with poles, checking for flare-ups. One squeals as sparks shoot up, and everyone laughs, relief disguised as humor. Quirky fact: some brigades even kept little songs for these moments, half to lighten spirits, half to warn others where not to step. Still, the risks aren't just scrapes and burns. Falling from rooftops remains the deadliest threat. Everyone in Edo knows of some firefighter who misjudged a leap or slipped on a tile, disappearing into the smoke with a sickening thud. You can't shake the image, especially since earlier tonight you nearly joined that list when you pulled your comrade back from the edge. Your legs feel leaden, but you force yourself to keep moving, because stopping means dwelling on how thin the line is between hero and corpse. The captain surveys the scene, face grim, tallying injuries. There's no pension worth mentioning, no guarantee your family will be cared for if you fall. A tiny stipend, yes, some social respect, but that won't mend bones or feed children. Joke number 2. The only retirement plan here is don ti die before the rice harvest. A cough racks your chest again, and you double over, vision blurring. When you straighten, the world feels oddly muffled, as if wrapped in cotton. For a terrifying second, you wonder if the smoke has deafened you. Then you realize it's just fatigue, your body shutting down sounds you don't need, saving the little energy left for balance and breath. You steady yourself against a blackened post. Yet, even in pain, you notice the resilience around you. Neighbors, eyes red and streaming, gather possessions from the ashes. A boy walks by proudly clutching a kettle, the only thing his family saved. A grandmother thanks your brigade with deep bows, though her house is now rubble. The gratitude sits awkwardly on your shoulders. You destroyed as much as you saved, but her words warm you more than the fire, as he'd ever did. Historians still debate whether these brigades were reckless brutes or community saviors. Looking at the wreckage, you suspect the truth lies somewhere messy in between. You risk life and limb, but sometimes your tools of salvation look a lot like weapons of destruction. Your comrade nudges you, handing over a rice ball, warm despite the soot. You take a bite, mouth dry, and laugh through the exhaustion. Joke number 3. Nothing says romantic dinner like sharing snacks while your eyebrows are still smoking. The night deepens, smoke thins, and your body aches with every heartbeat. But you're still standing, bruised, burned, coughing, but standing. And in Edo, that's the closest thing to victory you'll ever get.